Welcome to the Grit Daily Startup. I'm your host, Sebastian Rusk, and this is a podcast about what goes on behind the scenes at startups. The good, the bad, and the gritty. Let's dive in. Brendan, Kamm, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
It's great to meet you. Great to have you here too. So you guys have quite the story of the brand that you've built. And on this podcast, we like to talk about the startup world, the good, the bad, the gritty, pun intended, of that process on here. But before we get into what's going on with your brand and your startup and how you guys have evolved, let's talk a little bit about you and help our listeners understand a little bit about your story.
Sure. So I actually started my career in advertising, media planning, deciding who's going to put what ads where. And as I grew through that industry, I ended up in a sort of niche area of it called media barter. I was actually trading like distressed assets for advertising time, meaning literally I was taking like old airplanes from American Airlines and turning them into advertising credits. Really cool business. But I actually happened to start doing that in 2006. And like a lot of things in the world, I got lucky in a way, in that when the economy tanked, that business, as you can imagine, based on what we did, took off. And so I was part of this company where I was, maybe the 15th employee or so. And over the next sort of 7 years, I think we grew to 300 employees and 7 international offices. And I kind of rose to the top of their sales and client services org chart. And it gave me that bug that, hey, man, that was really cool to grow like that. And that was sort of my impetus to get into the startup world, because that little business was part of a bigger advertising conglomerate holding company. So you always had that sort of mom above you who could help you. But I really wanted to do that again. And so that's what led me into the startup world. And what I found in the startup world, you couldn't rely on your brand, right? You were something new, you were trying to sell something. And so I would always fall back on building relationships. That was kind of the key. I'm not the slickest sales guy in the world, but I was always pretty good about, having a genuine and authentic relationship with people. And that's ultimately where THNKS, the startup I've started now and run for the last 6 years now, came from. It was this idea of building relationships. We'd always do these things in advertising where I'd send you some swag, right? A notebook with my logo on it, a pen, a sweatshirt. But that's really about me. I mean, that's promoting my brand, not about you, the person I'm trying to build a relationship with. And it's really hard. Even if you want to just do something like buy someone a cup of coffee, there's an expense report you have to do. You have to worry about, a compliance rule. Are they allowed to accept something even like a cup of coffee? And so we ended up building THNKS really with this intention of, hey, man, what if there was this platform where I could do something small. I could send you a cup of soup because you weren't feeling well, or an Uber ride because you were in New York and it's raining and, you could skip the subway. I'm going to cover your ride today. Just a small thing,
Mm-hmm.
And it would be, thoughtful, and all the things that come along with having to do that, like those compliance rules, what budget it comes from, the expense report, we would build the software to take care of it. And that's ultimately what we built with THNKS. We wanted people to be able to really focus on the relationship building and appreciation and thoughtfulness, and not worry about all the back end things that kind of prevent you from doing that in a business setting a lot of times.
Love it. Grossly underrated and needed in this world, especially after the past couple of years. We'll get into that in just a minute here. But so THNKS is the brand without the A. How'd that come together?
Yeah. So it turns out THNKS with the A is quite expensive. So that was one blocker. Interestingly, we actually didn't even have the .com when we started. We were thanks.biz, which we convinced ourselves was just fine because we were a B2B platform. It wasn't really meant for the consumer. Sure. But you quickly realize you kind of need that .com. So we said, all right, we'll spend a few bucks on that. And we were able to acquire that. And then we said, man, we should get that A. Turns out a large conglomerate owns that, which I won't mention, and negotiation of looking at several $1 million that we didn't have. And we said, you know what? It's cool to not have the vowel. There's plenty of startups that act that way. So,
right. You start going down the list. Yahoo, Google. I mean, these names stuck. Okay. THNKS without an A. It's sticking, ladies and gentlemen.
Making it a thing.
Right. We don't have the A in our name because it saved us a couple $1 million moving forward. And we're
hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
100%. It keeps it's keeping us financially responsible over here on here. But no, okay. I do like you're in this day and age, if positioned correctly and the branding is done right, the name does complement the brand, obviously, with what you guys go and and do. But it's not as drastic as it was, I guess, pre-internet. I don't know if you could
That's right.
leave A's out pre-internet. So
No. Texting helps it.
right. So this platform is a B2B platform. Let's chat a little bit about why brands need it and what you guys do to solve a solution. I was checking out the website earlier and it said request a demo. So I'm assuming there's, you guys got a platform that integrates for brands to be able to leverage and use. So how's that all work?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we kind of start with the sales team, that person building these sort of external relationship, because that's one of the hardest things to do. Just given the volume of what you're expected to do if you're a BDR or an account executive, and also all those rules that can kind of go around that. So we really focus there. And the thought is, look, everyone in those positions has a T&E budget, but a lot of times it's that $500 dinner at the end of the quarter, probably with the same client you kind of always do it with because you're comfortable with them and you enjoy them. And that's fine. That's good. But man, if you could replace that with 50 or 60 small gestures of appreciation, these little everyday things to all these people, and then I can connect that to your CRM and show you, hey, look, these deals are going to move through your pipeline faster. You're going to get more of them through. And I can show you that almost in real time just by doing these little thoughtful things, right? It's purposely not a big item. It's not, hey, I'm going to send you these golf clubs if you take that meeting. It's, oh, you mentioned you have a dog, so I'm sending you a mini pet makeover from Petco, which is one of my favorite things on our platform. It's just that like, hey, I was listening, right? And that kind of jumps you to the front of the line in someone's mind. And ideally actually builds a real relationship between you and a prospect, a client, whoever it might be. So that's kind of the key person we're looking at in any organization. But from there, we tend to grow into, HR. A manager typically has some sort of budget for their team, and you go and you do your one team event in a month, and that's fun. But man, wouldn't it be cool if that person on my team who put the extra hours in this week, and I could give them, I know they're going to watch the Bills game this weekend because they're a big Buffalo fan. I'm going to give them wings and a beer, and I can just shoot it right over through email. I know I've got the budget to do it, and it's super simple for them to redeem it. That's kind of the idea. Let's make this simple and frequent so that it becomes part of the zeitgeist, part of the thing you do every day.
So it's a tool to be able to further and build relationships, but it's also a tool to move deals through the pipeline.
Yeah, look, there's always that sort of ROI component to it. I think, I don't want people focused on that. That will come if you focus on the right thing, which is being thoughtful and doing the right thing. I know a lot of times people are like, well, can I drop it into a sequence in SalesLoft and it's going to be part of my whole flow? And we absolutely can do that. But I encourage people to really not just sort of throw it out there and be generic about it. If you're going to put it in sort of a sequence, you're in sales, why not trigger it, right? We've got things where you can say, hey, everyone who's in my pipeline who's in San Francisco, the next time it hits 40 degrees there, I want a hot chocolate to go out to everyone. So at least put that little extra, like, hey, there's a reason I was thinking about you and what I'm doing here. So that's kind of that layer that we try to put on people and help them think through.
It reminds me of a story I heard Gary Vee tell probably 10 years ago when somebody went in and bought a gigantic order of wine from Wine Library TV, and he had his team go hunt down this guy and do research on him and figure out what he likes and what he likes to do. Turns out the guy was a Jake Cutler fan, and at the time was playing for the Chicago Bears, and they sent the guy a signed Chicago Bears jersey after that large order. The guy called in and said, I don't know why this showed up. I love the wine, but this is incredible, and you've got my business for life.
Exactly. And that's it, right? It's that little extra thought. And so if you can make that easy for people to do with everyone, instead of just the big wine order, it's, well, hey, I just appreciate you taking a meeting with me, right?
Sure.
Now, a Jay Cutler signed jersey at that stage is not appropriate, but something smaller might be. And as you move along in your relationship, they do become a friend, a big client, whatever it might be. Now you get really, something really personal and really, that they'll love. And so there's this sort of like, appropriate level of what you're sharing and how you're showing gratitude that we try to instill in people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about the past couple of years during the pandemic and how things have changed with that. I was reading some stuff before our interview earlier this morning that, the pandemic was challenging for all of us out here, but you guys were able to navigate through that in a specific way.
Yeah, I think, two things that sort of resonated with our brand and how people used it. One, obviously we were now apart. And almost overnight, you're like, man, well, how am I going to stay connected? Right. I can't fly across the country right now and go meet that person. Right. I can't have that lunch with that client. And so it was a way to show that you cared, right? And because it's all digital and done through email or Twitter or text message, you didn't even need to know where people were. And that was a really, I think, underrated thing. Even companies with HR, I mean, they weren't even sure where their people are working from. It wasn't necessarily at home, right? People went different places or lived with parents, whatever it might be. And so we gave them a way to stay connected without having to have that, somewhat awkward conversation of, well, where are you? I'd like to send you something. So it really allowed for that.
What's your home address? I'd like to send some chocolates. Yeah.
It's always a little strange, right? Versus like, hey, I can surprise and delight you and do that type of thing. We also found that events, going virtual, this was great. In my mind, I always kind of hated that you go up to that conference and you get your little bag of kind of junk that you inevitably just leave in the hotel room because you don't want to even carry it on the plane. It's landfill fodder a lot of times, right? I don't need a scoop ball with your logo on it. So now those events started being a little more thoughtful and a little more, okay, you're going to be attending virtually. I'm going to send you your breakfast, right? And I can do it right through THNKS, and I can we've got a feature where you could send to 5,000 people like with a click, right? You just upload a spreadsheet. So everyone attending the conference can have their breakfast while they watch their speaker, or maybe it's the book from the speaker who's talking, right? So it opened up new lines of business for us as well. But honestly, the really fun part for us was like, people took that extra second to be like, man, I really need to be grateful for things, right? And so the sort of messaging we were pushing, I think, was resonating more of, I got to take that step back and really be thoughtful. It's not just go, go, go. It's like, what do I care about and how do I want to be presented, Yeah. And so that made a big difference as well.
Incredible. So, what are you guys working on right now? What's on the docket for 2022 in the platform? Any new features that are being rolled out?
Yeah, actually, speaking of landfill fodder with some of that swag stuff, we're going to launch a product tentatively called THNKS Eco. And the thought here is, we've got a lot of digital options, but we send a lot of physical items too. You can send wine or gift baskets and things through THNKS. But THNKS Eco is going to basically cull that down for you. If you've got ESG initiatives or you frankly just care about some of the things going on in the world, you'll be able to only have a marketplace of sort of sustainable goods, digital goods. And not only that, but if you did need to send something physical, you'll be able to connect to a system where you can basically up level a couple bucks to make it carbon neutral, to plant a tree, right? Just things that are, I think, in the forefront of a lot of people's minds, especially at larger companies. So I'm excited for that. It's a choice. It's not going to be forced on you in the platform. It's sort of how you want to work. But it's going to be something we're offering. And then I think the next big thing for us is we're really expanding internationally. It makes all the sense in the world. You've got employees around, you've got clients, prospects. It's not the easiest thing in the world to ship to something to Egypt or London or wherever you need to go. But when I can get it to you instantly in their own local currency and localized, that seems to be a really, really big thing that a lot of our clients are asking for.
Incredible. Well, it's clear that you guys are doing work that matters here, work that's it's a human experience in addition to being a B2B solution is really what I'm taking, from this conversation. Our last guest on the show was a brand called Dayrise, and they have a platform all about eco products and educating consumers and have a platform for businesses to offer the right kind of products. So it's funny that you had mentioned that. It's just so refreshing to see that, brands like yourself are leveraging technology to make sure that we are, air quotes, doing our part when it comes to eco-friendly stuff and our environment and really caring about, what's taking place. So that's definitely encouraging. I love that. That sounds like an obvious next move for you guys. So any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience as far as what you guys are doing over there at THNKS? I've really enjoyed this conversation. I love what you guys are doing. I'm excited to learn more about it.
No, I appreciate that. And, for us, it's really about that, taking that moment to be thoughtful, right? Whether that's about, eco and ESG, or it's about your relationships. It's, we're just more and more in this digital world where everyone's just an email address or a screen. And this is a way to your point, be human, right? We don't want to lose that, even if we have to be apart, or as we get more and more into, digital and sequences and everything's automated. And it's like, man, there's still a human behind it all that makes that final decision.
Absolutely.
And we're all kind of in it together. Right. So that's kind of our thought. And that's what we want to sort of, not push on people, but try to make people aware. And that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Well, I absolutely love what the work you guys have done here with THNKS, and I encourage you guys to keep it up. It looks like you guys are not slowing down by any stretch of the imagination, and it's been great to chat with you for a few minutes and get to know you and get to know what you guys are doing there at THNKS. And we look forward to connecting with you, in the near future. I'm sure this is just the first of many opportunities for us to be able to continue to stay in touch and support what you guys have going on over there. And THNKS. And if you're listening to this right now, you're thinking, I want to know more about THNKS. I got a brand that I need that for. All of the links and contact information and being able to get in touch with the THNKS team is going to be included in the show notes. Well, Brendan, thanks again, brother, for your time. It's been great to chat with you, and I just want to encourage you to keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Until next time, friends. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Grit Daily Startup. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. This podcast is brought to you by gritdaily.com, the premier startup news hub. More information at gritdaily.com. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian Rusk. Until next time, friends.